This is episode 40 of the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. Today, I'm talking with Angelica Witherspoon-Cassanova. She is the author of the Clip-Clop Chronicles. Angelica is a Florida native who enjoys writing and riding. She holds a BS from Florida A&M University, a screenwriting graduate certificate from UCLA, and an MFA from the New York Film Academy. She currently splits her time between Florida and California, where she works in entertainment and volunteers with an equine therapy program for veterans. Now, let's get into the interview. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast, a podcast featuring interviews with equestrian authors who love all things horses and writing about them. In each episode, you'll hear inspirational stories from horsebook authors, including writing advice and marketing tips to help you write your very own horsebook. If you're an author, aspire to be an author, or simply love horsebooks, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Kade, and creative writing makes my spurs jingle. Hi everyone, welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight Show. I'm Kade, and today I'm so excited to be talking with Angelica Witherspoon-Cassanova. Hi Angelica.
Hey, Carly. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course. So excited to support fellow horsebook authors, and I can't wait to learn more about you and your books. But I always like to start these conversations off with asking how your love affair with horses began.
So my love affair with horses started when I was riding home from church with my aunt and my cousins, and she happened to see one of her friends riding their horses along the street. I'm from a rural community, so it's not out of the ordinary to see people trail riding, but I'd never been up close and personal with a horse. And so we got out, we said hello, and she was like, do you want to get on and take a little ride around the pasture? And I was like, they're kind of big, I don't know. But as soon as I was in the saddle, it was just kind of like magic. And then from that moment on, it was like, I'm going to read about horses, I'm going to watch horse movies, I'm going to talk about horses all the time. And I think my parents were hoping that it was like a phase. So I didn't start riding, actually taking lessons till I was like 13. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it wasn't a phase. And it was that moment that really got me started. And I still have that picture where I'm just like in a church dress, in a saddle on a little pony. So.
Oh, that is so cool. I love that story. And I think all parents kind of hope it'll be a phase because horses and riding lessons aren't cheap. And then from there, so you started riding at 13. That's a great age to start riding. And then that's when you started taking lessons. And then, so how did it progress? Do you have a fur baby in your life that you have now?
Well, currently I have some fur babies that I'm allowed to ride. Let's just say that they're my friends. And it's two. One is Rook Zook. He's a Westphalian gelding who's got he's a dressage, semi-retired dressage horse. And he's got so many buttons and he really makes me work for them. Mm-hmm. But when I get him right, it's so great. And then the other one is a Hanoverian gelding called Gusto, who is, he's got a lot of energy and a lot of sass, and he's really fun to ride as well. But he's also a sweetheart. So, I'm blessed to be able to ride these two amazing horses currently.
Oh, that is so cool. And then, so I imagine your discipline of choice is English, or do you do a little bit of everything?
Yeah, I do. If somebody's like, get on this Western horse, I'm not going to say no. But I generally ride English and eventing and lower level eventing. I can't about novice level is where I stop. It gets too high for me after that. But yeah, I do primarily English disciplines, but also I used to ride a pole bending horse and a reiner, and I was like, this is really neat. So maybe in the future I'll get me a reining horse.
Oh, that would be super fun. I would like that too. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're neat little horses.
Yeah, well, and that's the cool thing about horses. It's like you can try on a little bit of everything, and the discipline you start at may not be where you end eventually.
Exactly.
And this is so cool. I think this is a great way to kind of bridge into your books. Because you said you fell in love with horses. It wasn't a phase. You started taking your riding lessons. You read everything about them. You watched all the horse movies. That sounds very similar to, my story. I was exactly the same way a lot of us are. And then now you're an author of horse books. Can you tell us a little bit about the Clip-Clop Chronicles? You have 2 books now in the series.
Clip-Clop follows a young chocolate writer. She likes to call herself. Her name is Roz. and she's just navigating her life in this equestrian world. She has a really big family, and none of them are into horses. Everybody competes in track and field, and she's kind of like the oddball out. So she's navigating her family and her passion for horses, as well as adolescence, and she's got a nemesis already at the age of 12 that is, makes it hard to be a good person, but she tries her best. And throughout those things, we see her compete, and we see her make good choices, make bad choices, and just, you know, life of a horse girl. Her family actually doesn't believe that while they don't believe horses is a sport, they also don't believe it's something that Black people do. Hmm. So Roz has to kind of like be like, well, maybe they don't do it that much, but I'm one that does it. So uh, we're gonna change that. So.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool. And this story is, I hear your main character is 12 years old, and where did this story come from? Did it like pop into your mind at one point and you're like, I have to write this book? Or did like what led you down the path to putting together two books that are very successful, which we're going to talk about here in a second? But where did this story come from?
It actually happened when I was speaking with one of my old mentors within the entertainment community, and she's also an author and a director. And she one day said that, another way to break in the door is to write a book and have a following, and then you can leverage that to your entertainment, whatever else you want to do. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I've never thought about writing a book. That seems like a lot of work. It's much longer than a script, and I was always like, I'm a reader. I don't know that I'm an author. Mm-hmm. And so she was like, but you could buy your first house with it. And then he's like, yeah, or I could buy a bunch of horses. And so then she goes, well, you ride horses? And I was like, yeah, I ride horses. And then she's like, I would have never known that. You should write about all of your adventures and make it about a group of little Black girls that ride horses. And I told her, I don't know what that feels like, because growing up, I was the only, chocolate child riding horses. Mm-hmm. And she was like, that's your story right there. That's what you need to, get out there. So.
And I love that. You had a great mentor who kind of guided you towards writing a book. And even though it sounded like a big project, you took it on and you like totally created a world, which is really cool. And I know you touched on your background in the entertainment business, which we're going to get into in a little bit here, but I want to stay with the book for a moment. They say that all stories are partly personal, and I'm hearing that there is a personal connection in this book for you. So what message do you hope your readers come away with after they've read your book?
Well, so yeah, it is personal, except Roz is way cooler and way braver than I ever was. So we'll just go with that. Mostly what I would hope that they would take away from this story is that, she's a cool little kid and she sticks up for people and she works hard. And I want people to take that away, but also more importantly, that she tries her best, even when it's hard, to treat people with kindness and respect. That's like the bottom line, because, there are so many people today that are would rather just bully people around, or even if we have differences, don't think that we can get along or be kind to each other. And she does that even when it's hard. So I would hope that people could take that away as like a broad message, but also for like little chocolate girls like me, that they're not alone, or other little people of color or grown people of color, that they are seen and representation matters. And, if whatever it is that you want to do, if you're like the first person doing it or the only one doing it that looks like you, then just keep doing it. It'll be all right. You're not alone.
And that's so awesome. And also, to follow your passion, like always follow your heart and follow your dream and follow your passion. And that is such a powerful message to be delivering through your books. And this was really cool. When I was galloping around your website, doing some research for the interview questions, you got an incredible review from Kirkus Reviews on the first book in the series. They called it a standout story with a strong heroine and an authentic voice. How did that kind of feedback make you feel on your very first book? That's like incredible.
Yeah, it was a surprise, honestly, because I'd had people read it before, but they all know me, so I can't really, if your friends say they like it, it's like, okay, maybe they like it, maybe they don't. Mm-hmm. And if a family member says they like it, of course, but, they love you anyways, right? It's like obligatory. But when I got that review, it was just kind of like, okay, this wasn't all a waste of time, and maybe I can tell a story and have something that people want to read. There was a little validation there too, as well. That okay, maybe you are an author, or maybe you can write a story. That was mostly all of it, like the validation of it. Some stranger saying these nice things about my story um, really made me feel good and really kept me going when it was hard. And so,
Yeah. And that kind of feedback is so awesome because we as the authors we're so hard on ourselves, right? It's like every time you sit at the keyboard, it's like, who am I to write a story? Who am I to write this book? And then
right.
to have it be validated that way is like, oh, okay, I can keep going with this. So like, I'm so happy for you. That's awesome feedback. So is this going to be a series of more than 2 books? What are you planning for the Clip-Clop Chronicles, which is such a cute name, by the way. I love that name. You got to tell us how you came up with that too.
Well, thank you. I feel like okay. So when I grew up, I was reading the Saddle Club and books like that, and so I was like, I could be a Saddle Club writer. Writer, I could do that. And then I started writing the first one, and right up until the end of the last chapter, or right up until I was writing the last chapter, it was just going to be like a one-off thing. And then characters have a tendency to take their own, do what they want on the keys. It's like you're possessed to write, and
Uh,
so
totally. I love that you just said that. Yeah.
yeah. So then at the end, the first one, it left it up in the air, and I was like, well, okay, I guess I'm gonna do a series, maybe or maybe not.
Uh-huh.
And then some of the people that read were like, oh, when are you gonna do your next one? And I was like, I don't know, maybe later, we'll see. 2 years later, I wrote it, and the same thing happened with this one. It's like we'll leave it up in the air and see what happens. Like the story is finished, but it can keep going. So yeah, that's what I planned on to do for a series. Yeah, it'll be a series. How long it keeps going on, we'll see what the characters say. Uh,
Yeah.
they're basically in control.
And that is exactly my experience. That's how I feel when I'm writing my books too. It's like I kind of follow the characters. They kind of, it flows out of me. Like sometimes I don't even know, like I'm not there. It's the characters telling me what to do. And that's
Hmm.
sort of how it went with my series too. It's like I finished the first one and then it was like, oh, they want more from me. And then there was the second one and then the third one. And now I'm working on the fourth one. So
Yeah.
I just, follow that muse because I think the books keep coming until the characters feel like they're finished with you. You know what I mean? So I'm hearing there's a third one in the works back there, at least in the mind, right?
Yeah, there's one in the mind. We'll we'll see what it comes out, but yeah, there's definitely one in the mind.
And I think this is really awesome too because you're writing a series, but you're also writing them from a perspective for young Black women. So this is a really important series that you're working on, for diversity in our sport, right? It's there,
Right,
but a lot of people
right.
aren't talking about it, and you're doing that. It's like it's so awesome that you're bringing that forward from your experiences and letting other people know, this is a sport for everyone. This is not there's no limits when it comes to the healing power of horses, the power of riding a horse, the spiritual connection that you get. Like these are animals for everyone, which is so cool. And thank you for doing what you're doing.
Mhm.
So that being said, I also trolled your Facebook page and I saw that you do some like cool events. Like so I know you do events, but like what have been some of your ways of getting the word out in the community or reaching your readers about these books? Like, do you have any tricks up your sleeve you can share with other authors that are listening in on the podcast?
I don't know that I would call them tricks because it's work, but
It's always work.
yeah. So like the regular stuff like social media and email, and book signings, and going to schools, and thankfully, like I'm mostly an introvert, so I thankfully have a bunch of family and friends that are not, and they are willing to get on board to help me, pub the book, get out, and really word of mouth is the best thing ever. Because one person reached out to me via email and said how much they loved the book, and I was like, oh, how did you hear about it? She was like, from so and so and so and so. It was like a 7 degrees of separation type of thing. It was
Hmm.
really neat.
Hmm.
So with the help of some type A personality friends and family that can go out and do all of the more of the reaching out, then I'm able to get out of my shell a little bit more and then go to the events and read it. Like story time in schools is really neat. I went to one in particular where they were reading the book the whole semester, and so they they asked the teacher, it was like, can she come and read to us? And they were like, I don't know, she lives in California, I don't know if she'll be able to make it. So basically, it was like the last day of school, or close to the last day of school, and she had told them that I wasn't able to make it from. She asked if I could come, and that I couldn't make it from California. And then I bust in the door, and like the kids are crying, and it was great. And they were like, "Oh my gosh, we have a real author!" And I was like, "This is really fun." Like, I like to surprise people, so it did work out in that respect. So things like that is what I do to help, you know, get the word out. But that was one just particular instance that was just kind of like, okay, this is really neat.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, and it's so funny because like we were talking about earlier, you're sitting behind your keyboard and you're following the characters, and you're also like, who am I to write a book? But then when you meet your readers, and particularly, your readers are a little younger, being so excited to meet the author, and like you created that for them, and that is such a cool experience. Thank you for sharing that. And I love that you said you're also an introvert, and a lot of authors are. I am, and you have to like kind of generate that extroverted side of you. And I also love that you said word of mouth, because I really think that that is true. It's like that's why, being good to your readers like you have been, and like taking care of your readers, they spread the word for you, including your overzealous like members of the family that are out there, chattering for you too. Like I appreciate my family that does that, and my friends that do that. But yeah, it's a little harder when you're the author and you're a little more introverted, and you like your little hole where you stay and you write your books. And I'm talking more about myself here, but you like to stay in your lane and write your books, and then going out into the world sometimes can be scary, but often you come back with these really cool experiences like what you just shared with us. And I imagine you have some really neat like video or pictures from that event. I'm hoping.
Yeah, we do. I don't post them because they're children, and I don't really like to put other people's children out on the interwebs. But yeah, we have lots of recording and video, and
Aw.
yeah,
And
it's nice.
that's really responsible, not putting other people's
Yeah,
children out on
yeah,
the web. But I imagine that would make a great picture for your desk to look at, and once help you continue your work and be like, I did that.
yeah.
That's
Every time I look through it, I'm like, oh, that's okay. I'll keep going. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I love that. And I hope you do keep going, because this sounds like it's just so fun and a very important series. I also like to ask this question too. When you were working through your story and you were you wrote it obviously, and I like to call them book babies. And when you were about to give birth to your book baby, what route did you decide to go? Did you go the traditional publishing route or the independent publishing route? What were you thinking about when you did that?
Well, initially it was the traditional route because that's all I knew, and then that's my mentor was like, you should send it out, do this and that. So for a long time, I was sending it out and getting a whole bunch of either if they did respond at all, it was great writing, but not what we're looking for, which was partly good because it's like, okay, it's a good story and
Hmm.
I'm writing good or well. You know, I also want somebody to read it. So
Hmm.
uh, after a particularly rough year, it was just kind of like, you know what? And I had already gotten the Kirkus review, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna do it myself and see what happens.
Hmm.
And that's how I went independent route for this one. Not that I'm against traditional
Hmm.
routes, but for this series and at that point in my life, this was the best way to go. So,
Hmm. And you got
um,
to choose what your cover was going to look like, and
yeah.
you do own a lot more control when you go that route. And obviously, it was the right choice because you're having
Mhm.
a lot of success, and the books are beautiful, and that's the way it goes with traditional publishing. A lot of the time with course books, they say it's too niche, or
Mhm.
and most all authors get a lot of rejection letters. I
Right.
mean, even the most best-selling authors in the world like get those because these are big distributors with like kind of tunnel vision, and they're looking for particular things, and a lot of times they're not looking over here and here. That's why independent publishing is so awesome. You have the power to get your story into the world and find your people yourself. You said you work in the entertainment industry, which we're going to get to here in a second. I used to work in the music industry. And I like
Oh.
to equate that the independent movement with authors is a lot like what it's like for indie musicians or indie filmmakers, because
Mhm.
like in my music business days, I worked for Sony and Universal as a artist development representative, and our A&R people would go out and they would look for bands that were had a grassroots following, that had established themselves, that were indie groups with a following, and then they would sign them on to these big deals. And I think that that's kind of where we're heading with independent publishing. You know, we're showing up a little bit later down the line, but that's sort of what I think is going to start happening for us. Would you have an entertainment background? Would you agree that that's sort of like where we might be right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it goes. The box office even will show people are tired of just watching the same thing over and over or reading the same type of thing over and over, and they're open to all different types of stories. And now there's many outlets where they can go about that easily. You don't have to go through and try and find a remote person with a book. Like you can go on Amazon and click, and now
Hmm.
you're following all these independent artists, and you're like, oh look, then I've got new books I can read that I would have never seen before because they're not on the shelves. And so
Hmm.
I agree with you. I think that and I honestly hope that it is something that'll maybe they'll mesh more the
Hmm.
traditional and the independent, and um, just as a way to open the channels for the people that are doing the grassroots work on the ground. And to be fair, if it's like the entertainment industry, they prefer the people do the hard work
Mm.
before they get to them. They'd rather be like, oh, she's already got some people, we'll go ahead, and now we don't have to like go through and do as much work to sign her, or to get her out in the interwebs because she's already out there.
Yeah,
So
that is so right. And so we've touched on this a few times. Let's talk about, so again, when I was looking at your website, you hold a screenwriting graduate certificate from UCLA and an MFA from the New York Film Academy, and currently split your time between Florida and California, where you work in entertainment. So can you tell us about your career path and how, in the entertainment industry, like what you do and how it led to you taking on these books?
yeah, so I've always wanted to make movies. That was probably passion before even horses came into the picture.
Cool.
And it wasn't until later that I went to grad school and uh, went in for producing, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to produce or write or direct. Or at one point, I wanted to be a cinematographer. It didn't matter. I just wanted to make movies and wanted to
Mhm.
be in the entertainment business. I realized cinematography was way too technical for me, and so I had to shelve that one. But I would have never known that without going to grad school first. So
Mhm.
my grad school is interesting in that you can do 1 year in New York, and then you have to do the second year in LA, and that's what moved me out to LA. So once I made it out to LA, it's kind of like I graduated. It's kind of like the rat race and try and figure out what you're going to do next. So
Mhm.
I ended up starting in reality TV, actually, which I never thought I would do. But this, things shift around and people meet people, and so I got into reality TV, which was fun. And
Neat.
then I went into TV development and all of these things I had never thought of because I was always like film, 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 movies, movies, movies. And I was opened up to the world of TV and the world of reality TV and documentaries. And so currently I'm just doing a lot of independent work, independent writing, independent producing, even independent directing. So that's where the path of my career is right now, and will still be going. And then, like I said, I was able to meet my mentor through all of these different channels in entertainment, which led me to the horse book, or to writing. So
That is so
that-
cool. And what has been the most valuable thing for you working with your mentor? A lot of people work with coaches, a lot of people have mentors. I think it's so important to work with someone that can inspire you, offer advice. Like what has been the most, I mean, obviously you got a book out of working with your mentor, but what would you say to someone who doesn't have a mentor, that the advantages of having a mentor or coach would be?
there are several things that are beneficial to having a mentor or a coach. One, they'll kick you. in the behind when you need to stop looking around, fooling around on the internet and do some work. And also for me, it was like a challenge because she's like, when I first started writing the book, she said, just write 3 chapters, see what happens. And because I like when people give me a challenge, just like Roz, if they don't think I can do it, not that she didn't think I could do it, but she asked for 3 chapters, I gave her 6 because I was like, well, let's see if I can do it or not. So having her there at that time helped me to continue writing, and she gave me feedback on like you should go this route or this route, or make sure you have this and that. And those are things I would have never thought of because reading a book and writing a book are 2 different things. You just figure it'll happen eventually, but she did in the beginning give me some pointers to stay on track. And so I feel like if you have somebody that could mentor you, allow them to, and or if not, I don't know about coaches. I've never had like that kind of coach, but anybody that's going to be in your corner to help you push you out of your comfort zone, I think is a great thing. And if you can find one that you trust and that trusts you and, is really in your corner to help you, then by all means, grab all that information, be a little sponge and take what you can from them. Not
That's
take, but, absorb what you can
yeah.
ever do. Not
That's
take.
That's excellent advice, though, really. I mean, it's like so many people wouldn't be where they are if they didn't have someone like that in their corner pushing them forward. Because the own voice in your head can be your worst enemy and it can like stop you in so many different ways. And you've got this other person believing in you that's holding you accountable and pushing you forward and making you uncomfortable. I mean, that's part of it. Being comfortable with being uncomfortable is, I
Yeah.
think, like a big step for authors, and a lot of people and mentors or coaches can help you do that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. There's this one guy, he's a producer, and he told me once, he was like, you just need one yes. You're gonna get 1,000 billion no's, but you just need one yes. So if as long as you keep on keeping on, then that one yes will eventually come. And the same thing with a mentor. Maybe people will be like, I don't want to be your mentor. But
I don't have time. Yeah,
right,
that's
I
a
don't
big
have time
excuse.
on this, and
Yeah.
but just keep on keeping on. You just need one yes to get it going. So.
That's awesome. I love that you just said that. It's like I happen to be a fan of The Voice, and my husband and I were watching it last night, and Nick Jonas, actually of the Jonas Brothers fame, said the exact same thing on the show last night. He said, I had a million no's before I got to this point, and all it took was one yes. And he was saying this to one of his musical choices that he was having on his team, but that is the truth. We can get stopped by all the no's, or we can keep going in pursuit of that yes. And it is out there, and you just got to keep going. So that's awesome advice. Are you planning on writing the screenplay for your books? And because I heard you said you were dabbling in screenplays and doing stuff independently on the side and producing, which is all awesome. But what do you think? Do you think there's a screenplay for the books in the works?
There's already a screenplay for the books. Well, the first one, anyways.
Awesome.
So it's being shopped around. We'll see what happens, but there is a screenplay. Now, one of my former bosses was like, maybe you should do it as a series. So I'm currently trying to write it also as like a series. Maybe just do the pilot. But yeah, for the first book, it's written. We'll see what happens with it. So,
That
yeah.
is exciting. Oh my gosh, I wish you so much success there. And then was it, I mean, you have the training. You have training as a screenwriter. What was it like taking, I'm imagining your books are probably around 50 to 80,000 words. What was it like taking those down to taking one of those down to a screenplay? Was that tough, or did you enjoy the process?
It's tough. Like I've had to do that for books that aren't my own. Make treatments out of them or outlines or whatever. But for mine, it's like, no, that's important, and that's important, and that's important. But I'm like, nobody's going to read or watch a movie that's 3 hours long, and they're definitely not going to read it if it's more than 120 pages or 100 pages even. So it was fun, but it's also like it's kind of hard to clip away the things, especially since I'm attached to it. Like in other books, no problem. I'll clip that out. It's not essential to the story, but yeah, that I think that's probably the hardest thing. And with revisions, because I still revise it, and I'll be like, I could put this here, take that out there. So that's the hardest part with taking your own book and making it into a screenplay. Uh,
Yeah.
Cutting out what you have to, doing the cutting and the clipping, the surgery of it all.
And then it goes from what, like, the 50 to 80,000 words to like what, like 300 words or
90
something?
pages. I don't even know what the word count is, but we go by pages. So 90
Wow.
pages,
90.
92 pages.
That is incredible. And then so you say it's being shopped around. Is this like, are you going like how you doing? Are you doing like a Kickstarter campaign? Do you want to be involved in the producing? Are you ready to hand it off? Like, what does that all look like? Like, how did you get that going?
I am not yet ready to hand it off
Mhm.
unless somebody were to give me a significant option on it
Uh-huh.
or a significant price point, then maybe I would. But
Mhm.
no, I would definitely, especially if it's a series, I would want to be a part of it and be in the writers' room, kind of shape and mold what we're seeing on TV or film or whatever. Right now, it's kind of like the same thing with traditional versus independent,
Mhm.
going the traditional route and reaching out to other producers that I know, putting it up on boards to see if there are any bites and that kind of thing. I do have some producer friends that would maybe like to come along, but they are, they're busy right now, so it's fine. But it's probably an uphill battle, a long uphill battle, but or maybe it's not. It could be sold tomorrow. Who knows? I'm very open to that possibility. Uh,
That's so cool. You're waiting for
so
your yes.
yeah, I am waiting for my yes. I am
Yes,
waiting for my
and
yes.
and I want you in the writer's room because please make everything accurate. I think that is like the biggest struggle I have as an equestrian is the things that are being made is like, oh my goodness, like,
Yeah,
get the facts right, guys, please, or have an equestrian in the room or something and keep using the same horse, like
yeah, yeah.
don't have
Because we
like
can tell that it's different.
so this
That
is
horse
really
has a blaze, and that horse has a star. That's different.
exactly. Or like, they've got a, English saddle on and they're wearing, cowboy boots and a cowboy hat,
Yeah.
just wrong, all wrong.
Right, right. Which is fine because one of my old trainer was like basically a cowboy, but she was an all around horse person. So she would get up there in a cowboy boots and and a helmet. Actually, she would take off her cowboy hat and put on a helmet,
Mhm.
and jump the horse or whatever. But that's different. That's
It
not like
is.
yeah, you know.
It's not in like every scene. This is like a
Right.
trainer, like a powerful trainer getting up in her cowboy boots to, jump the horse and make it do the right thing. And she was wise, she put on her helmet. But yeah, like I totally get what you're saying, like just the authenticity of things. So we definitely want you in the room, which is awesome. And then, you're saying, you're kind of doing the uphill battle, it's the entertainment industry. It's like nothing is easy in the entertainment industry. But is it true that it's a lot of like who and the right timing around projects like this, just connecting at the right moment to get that yes in LA. I'm assuming it's a lot like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. The short of it is yes. It is who you know, and it is timing.
Hmm.
Um, and it is also the persistence of it. If you just keep at it long enough, eventually people will they'll get on your side, they'll get on board with you, and or somebody will be like, I've been looking for this for forever. And now
Oh,
we finally get it. So
yeah.
uh, you know, and faith on my part to just keep it going. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, it is a lot of who you know, and if who you know is willing to give you a chance or open a door or introduce you to somebody that could introduce you to somebody that could introduce somebody that will say yes.
Yeah, that actually that's a lot of the way life is in general. It's
Right.
always kind of connections, and I know what's going to happen for you. I'm so excited, and well, so I'm curious about this. Like I'm curious about potentially, doing a screenplay for my books. And I know a lot of other authors are that are probably listening to this podcast. What advice would you give given your background? I mean, you are educated in this. Like, for someone that doesn't know anything about how the industry works or how screenplay works or anything, what advice would you recommend to an author that aspires to see their book become a screenplay and then either TV or film? What advice would you give them?
I guess the first would be if you want to write, like if you want to write or if you just want to sell your book,
Mm,
that's two different things. If you want to have more control over it, I would say learn how to write a screenplay. And it's not that hard. You don't have to go to school or anything like that. I mean, read some books. Or actually, the best way to write a screenplay is read screenplays, and you can get them online. They're free. There are a lot of sites that'll give you screenplays for free, and during the award season, like we just passed award season for the entertainment industry, so there are plenty of people that are like the 2019 screenplays that are best pictures are out there, or the 2020 or 2018, any of those things. Just Google it. Google has everything, obviously. But I would say read some screenplays if you really want to write one yourself. Otherwise, I would try and put together a treatment or an outline, and then it's rough if you're not. I'm trying to think of the best thing to say, because there are a million different avenues.
So what I'm hearing is educate yourself, right? It's like, obviously step one is, understand how a screenplay is written, but then, there's treatments and there's log lines and there's a lot of other things that go into pitching for screen. So like, do you have any like books that you would recommend that were really powerful for you while you were educating yourself, that you would be a good place for people to start? Or is it a lot of different piecemeal kind of things?
I got the vast majority of it from my professors that didn't really believe in books. They were people who were in the industry, and they were like, listen, I'm just going to tell you how it is. Books will tell you, a lot of people will use Save the Cat as a book to read for story, like to write your screenplay, or Story by McKee. That's just one component, like, and that's just one person's opinion of how it should go.
Like Coursera has a lot of free courses that talk about filmmaking, and there's a lot of online stuff that's possible. So what I'm hearing is talk to people, right? Like talk to people like you who are involved in the industry, who know how it really works. Educate yourself, do some reading, but kind of get yourself educated before you step up into that route. But it's a lot like independently publishing your book. You have to do a lot of educating yourself step by step in order to figure it out. So I'm hearing that's sort of like the best advice is get educated, talk to people, right?
Yeah. Educate yourself, and read, and or if you feel like you're handy with the camera, go get a camera and do a little teaser, or you can. This is the digital age. You can make a movie with your phone,
your iPhone. Yeah, anything is possible. So it's shoot for the moon, right? The yes is around the corner, and until you get that yes, there's a lot of things that you can be doing to get to that point. And most importantly, write your book, so then you have something to take to script, right? So it's always sitting down behind the computer getting the book done first.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's like a pretty heavy, big topic to try and condense into like a 5-minute question, so it's like, I totally get that. Maybe perhaps we can have you back on the show again, and we can talk specifically about screenwriting, because I think that's something a lot of people are interested in. And obviously you have that background and you're doing it right now with your book, so you could get maybe a little more granular. That would be kind of fun. Would you be up for that?
I would be up for that.
All right. Well, there we go. Let's plan on that. I also want to ask you about this, because I think this is super cool, and it probably also adds in getting inspired for the next book in your series. You volunteer with the equine therapy program for veterans. Can you tell us about the program and the volunteer work that you do and how you got into it?
It's a very interesting program, and the program is not just for it started out as a program for children and adults with intellectual and physical disabilities. And then the owner also decided that they could reach out to people, the veterans, as well as people with sobriety. So there are several different programs within this program that are going to. I got into it because I happen to have a lot of time on my hands. Let's just say that at a certain time, and if I was gonna, I've grown up volunteering. That's like a part of my culture, rather, to be a help to the community and a blessing to others. And so if I was going to volunteer, I found horses. I was like, of course, I will go volunteer with horses. And I honestly thought I would just do the regular therapy part, but then when I saw the veterans, it's just like, my way to give back to them for everything that they've done for me and this country and our freedoms. It's So the program, horses are, and you said it yourself, horses are spiritual and healing, all of that. And basically, as volunteers, we just help them. They learn. Most of them are able-bodied, so they can, get their own horse, groom their horse, tack and get on and ride. And we're really just there to help them. The horses do all the work, really. They hear a little neigh that makes them feel, a little something inside, or when they go to groom them, they bond with these horses. And when they get up on top of them, especially the ones that have physical disabilities also, as well as PTSD, you can just see on their faces, it's like, oh, wow, this is great. I'm walking again, or I'm, trotting, or I'm doing something that's physical. And just to be able to see that is really, really neat. And so I guess I'm blessed to be able to have that opportunity to give back through horses. And uh,
Well, and thank you for your contribution. That is so cool. I mean, not only do you get to be on horses, but you're helping people, and particularly veterans who have been of service to our country and protect us all, right? So, and I think you explained it so cool, like just the bonding with the horse, and then getting up on the horse and having that experience and seeing the smile. I mean, that, I think, when I'm with my horses, is like the only time I'm able to be 100% present. And I'm sure that's the experience that they're having. They're not thinking about all the other terrible things that have gone on or happened to them or they're currently dealing with. They're just in the moment with the horse. And it's like such a powerful feeling.
hmm and we definitely make sure to let them know that you have to be in the moment with the horse, because even though they're well trained, a piece of lint could fly across, and next thing you know, you're on the ground. um, so
You
thankfully, it
have to
never.
pay attention. Yeah.
Right.
You don't have a
That's very
choice.
good.
You can get
Right.
kicked in the head, they could spook at a plastic bag, they could go
Exactly.
want to decide to like do their herd stuff and fight with each other, and you're in the middle.
Right.
Yeah, you have to be aware, not
Yeah.
just present, but completely aware. That's a great
Right. And they definitely realize that, because even though the horses that they ride, none of them are like 17 hand jumpers or anything like that. Most of them are mid range 15, but they're huge to them, because if you're not up on a horse, you don't really get the vastness of how big they are, even the small ones. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, that's really kind of like, we've driven Humvees over whatever, but this is a giant horse that could eat me. And then but then when they learn that they can have a partnership with this giant horse that won't eat them, but maybe bite them,
hurt them. Well, hurt
hurt
them.
them.
They have a
Yeah,
mind of their own. It's not like a piece of machinery. It's like
right,
a being.
right. And that's what they come out with. They're like, this is a being that I'm making a connection with that
Mm.
could hurt me, but it's not, because we're trusting each other. And so
Mhm.
you're right. In that time, they can, put away their all the horrificness that they've seen and just kind of focus on these horses and
Oh,
you know get some healing.
oh, that's got to be so powerful for you too. Like just so moving to be a part of that and see it happening in front of you. Thank you for doing that for people. I'm moved.
Mhm.
So I always like to ask these questions too in the interview, because everybody's perspective is a little different. For you, what has been the hardest part about writing your books? But then on the flip side, what has been the very best part? I mean, obviously the readers and the reaction from the school children when you surprised them and went in there and read to them. But what is kind of your experience, the hardest and the best part?
The hardest is editing,
Mm,
and writing in general, but editing. Once it's done, or even halfway. The reason why this second book took so long is because halfway through I decided I didn't like it, and so I scrapped it. And then I, you know, worked on some scripts for a while, and was very a little disheartened with it, and then got back into it eventually.
mm,
It's ups and downs. Everything's a roller coaster, right?
mm-hmm.
So I finally got over it, and so the editing process is hard for me, because then I'm like, if I go through it and I'm like, I don't like that, then I got to start over, or it's like, or you can think about it and fix it, and usually the characters tell me anyways what they want to do. So that's that. I think that's the hardest part for me. And some people say like the solitude, but solitude doesn't bother me.
I
Not
like
when
it.
I'm not when I'm working. It's like, yeah, I can put on some music. It's great. It's fine. And the best part about writing, and not to be cliche, but the readers,
Hmm.
honestly, because I can sit. I can. write a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of screenplays I have that will never see the light of day because I don't like them.
Mm.
But with this one, it was kind of like okay, take a leap of faith, step out, and see what happens. And people enjoyed it. Not everybody's going to enjoy it, and that's fine. But like when a reader says, "Oh, I really love this book," or "I connected this book," or one of my friends read it, and she's not a horse person at all. She's not even an outdoors person. And one day she texted me out of the blue and said, "You know what? I was thinking this thing happened in my life, and I thought about what happened with Roz in the book, and I got over that, and I did something,
Aw.
to help that." And I was like, that, those kind of things you don't expect, and but they become the neatest things, the best part about writing. So.
Yeah, that's such a cool moment and so touching. And I love that a non-horse person reached out to you, one of your friends that had read the book, and said, I can relate to this. So horse books aren't just for horse lovers. There's messages in there. Just horses happen to be in the books, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
anybody who likes a good read will like a horse book, and that's great. And I totally agree with you. Like hearing from readers and hearing things that surprise you about the writing that you've written and the feedback that you get is just a really cool feeling. And yes, editing is difficult. I wanted to go back to that. So when you decided you didn't like the second book, you said you scrapped it, but then I heard you came back to it and it worked itself out. So you didn't actually scrap what you had written and started over again, did you? Or
I kept some of it,
Mhm.
but a vast majority of it I was like, delete. I don't even want to look at it anymore.
So you've
Um,
reworked parts that weren't working for you,
right.
which is
Right.
normal.
Hmm.
That happens a lot too. And in the editing process, an editor will say to you, "I don't think this part works," or "I have a question," and then you end up reworking things and moving things around anyway. Or I had my editor on my second book. She said, "I hate this whole chapter." I was like, okay. I mean, she offered really constructive feedback about why, but she was like, "This just no." So I ended up taking the whole chapter out of the book, and the book is better because of it. So it's like
Right.
those are the things as an author behind the scenes that you have to do to make something enjoyable for your readers. So, and
Right.
it's hard to do that because you get attached to your words, and that's like sometimes a whole day's work deleting a
Hmm.
whole chapter. And then, so what are you curious about now? Like, what's next for Angelica? Where are you heading? What are you thinking?
Well, I've actually just been recently hired to work on a podcast, which
Ooh,
I've not me personally, like not doing what you do, like not that, but behind the scenes, the
uh-huh.
writing part of it. It's a nonfiction one, and
Oh, cool.
I find it very interesting. And it's again another avenue of storytelling that I never even thought of. So that's on the docket. I've also kind of been tasked to direct a feature that, and I've been I've already been doing directing some shorts and that kind of
Mhm,
thing. So and I find that fun.
mhm. Third
Just
book? Book 3?
third book, yes, yes. Book 3, book 4, book 5
Well, that's
down the road.
exciting. You've got so much like creative awesomeness going on in your world, and that's so exciting. And I imagine being a director is probably really cool because I mean, not, but you are also responsible for everything, like
Yeah,
you getting the actors on cue and like sticking to the script, and you have your team, but you're kind of making sure the team gets your vision. So that's like
yeah,
a super leadership role to be in the director's seat. Yeah.
yeah. Directing, even in the tiny things, it's like almost like something else comes over me,
Mm-hmm.
and I become like calm person, like calm. I'm gonna trust you to do your thing. I don't like to over direct people, or
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to take a million takes. I don't. I like to try and stay on schedule because while I'm working with very low budgets now or none at all,
Mm-hmm.
eventually I hope to do some that are big budgets, and you know you've got to be able to stay on task. But it really is like something comes over me where it's just kind of like, okay, you got this. Just calm down and slow it down, and then I'm able to get the work done. So I don't know. I like it. It's it's a different way of storytelling, and all of
Yeah.
this is really just about storytelling. If it's
Yeah.
editing, or if it's writing a book, or
Script.
directing a little short movie or a video,
Mm-hmm.
it's all storytelling, which is what I believe I've been put on this earth to do.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. That is so beautiful. And what I love is like these are all the little things that you're doing right now that are like training you for the next big thing that you take on. Like for example, like, all the little things that you're doing right now are training you for sitting in the writer's room when your books become a series or a movie, right? Like, and I can see it now. It's like you can be the horse book film director extraordinaire, and then we all have like a source to go to that's that, and you could be like the person that gets the value of horse books and brings all this to life, and we can all team up together and build a team around you, and that would be really cool. Like have like a place to go, like a film house
Yeah.
with a director that knows horses, where we can all go and actually get good horse movies made from good horse books, right? Where the people know
Right.
what they're talking about. Because I don't think it's too niche. I think there's a million horse lovers out there, and you don't have to like horses to enjoy these stories either. They're for
Right.
everybody. But
Right.
yeah, I see something big here, a big possibility.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I love visionaries that can see things. And you're right
Awesome.
about horses not being niche. Like my mother is not a horse person. I mean, she's shelled out several dollars over the course of my life to make me a horse person, but
Mhm.
she's not a horse person. But one of her favorite movies is The Horse Whisperer, and that's it's a horse movie, but it's the love story at the base of it,
Mhm.
and most horse stories aren't just like about grooming and tacking. They're not horse stories. They're just stories with horses in them. So
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and I think, it's been a long time since we've had a feature film with horses in them. I think The Horse Whisperer was actually one of the last that were like major films with horses in them that weren't like a
um,
cartoon or something.
I think Secretariat might have been one of the
Oh,
last.
yeah. Well, but that to me is like a horse film.
Yeah,
More
that's a
so than
biopic.
Yeah, more so than like The Horse Whisperer,
Yeah,
because that was like a romance that actually had horses in it. It was actually
that's true.
kind of a tricky romance situation, but
Yeah,
yeah, it was like more like mainstream, where the horses were important, but that not the main driver of the
yeah.
film. Anyway, this, we're going down a rabbit hole here, but like that was so cool, and I really would like to follow up with you again and have maybe just one whole episode about the process of screenwriting, and what it's like to kind of build a package around a book for going to screen. I think that you would be an awesome person to kind of help educate us about that, and then
Mm.
we can hear updates on what you're up to too. So,
Well, I'd love to do that. I'm kind of sifting my way through this as well,
mhm.
but
Well,
any way I can help other people and other horse authors and writers to get their stories out there, I'm on board to. If I don't know it, I'll figure it out and come back to you.
that's
So,
awesome. That's
yeah.
how that's how really all it works anyway. And I'll be back here rooting for you, for your books, for that
Mm.
that screenplay that you're up to get picked up, and all the great stuff you're up to. But in the meantime, before we reconnect again, can you share with people where they can find more out about you and your books?
Oh, yeah. So you can go to clipclopchronicles.com to find out all things about the horse books and where you can buy them. And of course, we're on Amazon. You could also follow us on Facebook at Clip-Clop Chronicles and Instagram at Clip-Clop Book and Twitter at Clip-Clop Book. Uh, yeah, so those are all of the main ways to get in touch with us.
And you did something really smart there across your social media channels. You kept everything the same, which makes it much easier to find you in your book. So that was really great. So Angelica, thank you so much for the gift of your time. Can't wait to have you back on the show, and thank you for all you shared with us today. I'm so excited to have had you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I hope you enjoy these Q&A sessions with wonderful equine authors who love all things horses and writing, just like me. Visit my website, carlycadecreative.com, where you can read the show notes, and make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you so much for your support. Want a free guide to secrets of horsebook authors? Gallop over to carlycadecreative.com/wisdom to have author advice delivered instantly to your inbox. If you are an author who writes about horses and would like to be spotlighted, please let me know. Visit my contact page at carlykadecreative.com to fill out a request. I'd be happy to have you on the show too. Thank you for tuning in to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. See you next time. I'm your host, Carly Kade. Creative writing makes my spurs jingle.